before this thing starts, you got to change your energy. Okay.
Okay.
You got to change your energy, man. I'm not feeling it.
Okay.
Oh, wait. I guess we have to start now. Fix your energy, Paul.
Okay.
Hi, I'm Raymond. You're watching RPadTV 3000. We have a very special episode today that is dedicated to the Book of Boba Fett. I'm joined here today by Paul Semel and Chris Baker. These are two of the biggest Star Wars fans that I've ever met. They're also two great friends, like Anakin was to Obi-Wan. And they're both excellent people. I'm excited to hear what they have to say.
Who is the Anakin and who's the Obi-Wan and who's going to betray whom here?
Well, I have to make an age joke because Paul is the oldest, so I guess he's Obi-Wan. Is that fair? Or is that a low blow?
I can live with that.
Yes. Hey, you're getting your own show in May, so that's cool.
Yeah, exactly. I live out in the middle of nowhere by myself.
You live like in the Wilshire corridor, man.
Yeah, that's true. That is really the middle of nowhere. So
now, before we get into the nerdy nitty gritty of it all, can I get a 2 or 3 sentence review of the Book of Boba Fett? Paul, let's start with you, please.
I'm sorry, you cut out there for a second. So
give me a 2 or 3 sentence review of the Book of Boba Fett.
Oh, okay. I really liked the Book of Boba Fett, but it felt like more of an incidental story than a main story, in kind of the same way that Rogue One did, in the sense of like they would have told that story in a book or a comic or something, but instead they decided to do it as a TV show. But it was still cool.
I think that was more than 3 sentences.
Yeah, well,
Chris can do better.
Maybe I can keep it shorter to even it out. It is one of the messiest Star Wars things I've ever seen in my life, and I love the hell out of it.
Ooh,
yeah, it's very messy, but I really love this show. Just I never knew what I would get week after week. It was something kind of different every show. Eventually got really different.
Is that what you mean by messy, or is just kind of all over the place for you?
Yeah, I mean, we could get into specific. I don't know how spoilery we're getting off the bat here, but there's stuff that
the hell out of everything. Go ahead, go for it.
Well, okay. Cad Bane comes in episode 6 out of 7, right? You only know who this guy is if you watch the Clone Wars, pretty much, right? Yeah. I mean, they should have, in a typical storytelling manner, done something in episode 2, 3. Tell you who this guy is. Like, he makes an awesome entrance and stuff, but it's not traditional storytelling to just have this very major character come in at episode 6 out of 7, and then really only have a major role in the climax of the entire thing, right? In episode 7. So I mean, that's just like one little example. I've heard people say like,
I don't think he was.
I don't think so.
Yeah,
no,
he was just there all of a sudden.
Yeah.
He wasn't name dropped before that, but after he showed up, they definitely said like, "Hey," somebody said like, "Oh, that's Cad Bane."
Right.
But you're 6 out of 7 episodes into the show at this point. It's just messy. But I love seeing Cad Bane, and I thought his real life looking performance was really awesome and kind of terrifying in a good way.
Oh yeah, big time.
Yeah,
but he didn't do any of the cool stuff with like the rocket boots and all that. And I was kind of hoping he would do stuff like that in the finale, but I get that he's kind of older now. Maybe he can't. I don't know how old his species lived to.
Right. Yeah, they kind of made him a pure good, bad, and the ugly character, doing showdown kind of shootouts.
Right.
But
now let's stay positive for a while here. What was your favorite part of the series, Paul? Why don't you kick that off?
Oh, I mean, for me, it was seeing all these characters from other things like Cad Bane, and and Ahsoka, and the guy from the comic book whose name I can never pronounce, and
Black
Chrysanthemum?
yeah,
chrysanthemum, yeah, black
yeah,
chrysanthemum.
like I thought that stuff was really cool, and didn't seem like forced the way it could have. Like
Right.
one of my problems that I had with Solo, although it's a very minor one, was that there was too much of that. There was like, oh, this is how he met Chewbacca and got the Millennium Falcon and got his gun and got his name, and like it was like too much stuff happened in once. And in this, it didn't seem that way. It seemed more like, oh, these are just part of the world and like what's going on. And I actually disagree with Chris about Cad Bane, because I felt like if you didn't know who he was, you kind of could figure it out pretty quickly. Like, oh, okay, he's some guy, badass, like kind of cowboy dude. So
Yeah, I'm just saying that in a traditional like good story, there's a build up. You know, there
Right.
really wasn't much of a build up other than he shows up near the end, and
yeah, I mean, I guess there's some assumption that you've seen these other things, kind of the same way, like if you watch Avengers Endgame, and that's like the first Avengers movie you watch, like there's no characterization really, but it's kind of like, well, there's all this other stuff you could have watched first.
yeah, but
So
you're
one of
talking
the
cartoons versus live action. I think there is a divisive line there. Like you have to be a certain degree of fan to be in your 40s or 50s, even in watching these cartoons, right?
So Paul, one of our viewers thinks you look like Count Dooku, and
I take that as a very high compliment. That guy was good looking, Christopher Lee, and he had a badass voice, unlike me. Didn't sound like a from New Jersey.
Yeah, your voice wouldn't quite work in some of his roles. Huh?
Mm.
Picturing.
Oh, come on. We
Mind
all
you,
know he's got
since-
a filter on right now, and he normally sounds just like Christopher Lee.
I wish. Badass.
Have you talked to anybody that hasn't watched Clone Wars about Cad Bane? Did they think it was cool? Were they like, who the fuck is that? Or
No, I have not talked. I haven't really talked to people other than just occasional tweets and stuff. No, I haven't. But I mean, do you really think that a huge portion of the people watching the show have watched the Clone Wars? I think a lot have, but I think
more than
majority,
you
no.
may think, because those shows were really popular, and they were not just popular among kids, but they were popular among people our age.
Yeah, I would say among hardcore Star Wars fans.
in the same age group as you? Come on, man.
I mean, but I also think like there were also like a lot of people who just the minute you saw that guy, you were like, oh, this is like some badass Lee Van Cleef kind of Clint Eastwoody kind of guy, and you
Right.
got it right away. Like, oh crap, some shit's gonna go down.
Right.
And the fact that it was somebody from something else, like that doesn't even matter. Like if you didn't know, like you would just be like, oh, that was just some guy that just showed up.
I think my overall point is just basically a story structure thing. Like if you think about the series as a whole, the first 4 episodes are basically like half flashbacks, in some cases more flashback, and then you're done with that, and then you're with Mando for a whole episode, and then you're with Luke for a while. It's like, and there's a whole episode of the Book of Boba Fett that has 0 Boba Fett in it. And another one that has like
would have like
lines.
A field day with this, a more traditional like TV person would just be like, no, this is not what you do. This, But I think also it benefits from the fact that they know that people coming to episode 7 have watched episodes 1 through 6. That no one's just going to come in to watch 7, and if you do, it's kind of on you.
Hey, I have an old classmate, Tom Siri, who says, myself and my kids watched Clone Wars and Rebels. my wife skipped both, and I'm forced to constantly pause and explain. Yes, that sounds about right.
Yeah, that's my fear. I feel like that's happening a lot, probably. But I do think you'll get the basic idea of that. This Cad Bane guy is a badass bounty hunter. Like that's pretty clear. But like the history and all that, there's
Right.
really no way other than a couple of lines for you to know that. Like even the biggest history line didn't even happen in the Clone Wars. Cad Bane's like, I've known you a long time, Boba Fett, and if you're really into your behind the scenes stuff, there's some Clone Wars episodes that didn't air or didn't get finished, and one of them was where Cad Bane basically mentors Boba, and at the end of it, they have a shootout, and Bane shoots him in the head, and that's where that big chunk out of his helmet comes from, like the big dent there. It's from Cad Bane. But that's still not officially canon because they didn't totally say it, but they're kind of insinuating that in that one line, just that kind of history stuff.
But I understand that it's obvious that he's cool and he's badass, but I don't know that people would get how badass he was. Like this guy was fighting Jedi, and he's not force sensitive as far as I can remember. Correct me if I'm wrong. He was
no,
going
actually,
toe-to-toe
I just learned this. The reason he has the stuff like connected to his neck is so that he can't be force choked. Like I didn't actually realize that, but yeah, I heard that on just some YouTube video or something. It's like, oh, that's really interesting. Like he doesn't have like a disability. He did that so that he could not be force choked by I guess a dark Jedi, because that's kind of a dark power, but Luke does it in Return of the Jedi, though, which is always weird. But yeah, he's a really cool character, and I love seeing him. But I feel like they could have done more. And then he probably dies. I hear some people aren't so sure about that, but yeah, I don't know. He looked pretty dead to me.
People are unsure if he died just because it's Star Wars, and we thought Boba Fett was dead, and we thought all these other people were dead, and like they turn up, and this from like comic books, like no one's ever dead, like
right. But now they have a cop out with Bacta tanks. Apparently, like Bacta tanks can heal a lot of stuff.
Bacta tanks and modification surgeries.
Oh my god!
Like,
can we talk about those guys?
Fennec
and
yeah, there's that too. That they mod for fun, but like Fennec got resurrected through that, and Cobb Vanth at the end apparently is in that process.
I thought they said he wasn't dead. I mean, he only took like one shot to the shoulder.
Well, when they asked him, or when they said like my condolences in the last episode, they didn't say he didn't die. They sure didn't say that. So it was left ambiguous.
Right.
And then like the
it wasn't like his deputy who took like 18 shots to the face.
Right. I saw a great shirt the other day. It was like it was a picture of Cad Bane. It says, "I shot the sheriff and I also shot the deputy." That was funny.
That's good.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
Now, I understand the purpose of the mod gang as a device, explaining how Fennec was brought back and bringing back Cobb, but I really didn't like these guys. They're color-coded space Vespas. They're stupid prosthetics. I mean, they didn't look great, and some of them looked kind of stupid, and they didn't really do a whole lot. I mean, how did you guys feel about them?
Yeah, I understand the pushback. I do, but I also think it is actually very much in line with Star Wars. And if you think about it like real life, like these are kids on, Tatooine. They hate being there. They watch their holonet from Coruscant or whatever, and they're like, that's what I'd like to be. That's where I want to be. I want to do all that I can to be a Coruscant person here. It's like a goth or something, a goth kid. They have their own style and their own way of doing things, and they don't fit in like with the rest of the normal people or whatever, right? That's kind of the mentality I see behind it, and it's
Well,
totally something George Lucas would love.
To my eye, and look, I can join their gang now.
Right.
That's
And also,
amazing.
you know,
yeah, this is an engage.
oh wow, you're not just side talking, you're eye talking.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So I see him as just like kind of rebels in a different sense,
But they couldn't have done a better job.
Teenage rebellion.
I don't know. Paul, what did you
I
think?
think it's the equivalent of like the diner in episode 2. It's kind of dumb, but it fits the kind of stuff George is into, and I could totally see this mod thing being like something that George Lucas is all about. Like he probably saw that and was like, "Good job, guys."
Yeah.
But we don't have to like it if we don't want to. But I choose to think it's okay. I accept it, like I do a lot of Star Wars.
That is very fair and measured, and I appreciate that perspective. Paul, what did you think of these young kids?
I mean, the weird thing is I wish they hadn't called it mods, because that was almost like too of our world. Like I wish they had a different name for them, because they were completely like the mods out of England that like the Who wrote about in Quadrophenia. I did like the idea though of people who choose to like replace parts of their body with mechanicals. Like I thought that was sort of an interesting subculture that we hadn't seen before. But it makes
one of my reactions was, don't give Elon Musk any more ideas. He already wants to do brain implants.
Right. Yeah. But yeah, I mean, when you have a technologically advanced society that can replace a hand perfectly, it makes sense that there are people who would want to do that. In fact,
totally.
Now that I talked about it, like I'm reminded of this. There was a Law and Order SVU episode about people that were really into amputation and like then getting like so they could like get prosthetics and things like that. It was like a weird fetish kind of thing. So I think I can definitely see that being a thing that you have in our future at some point.
Yeah, and some of the stuff they were wearing, it actually reminded me of like remember like in Knights of the Old Republic, you could put those ridiculous goggles and stuff on.
Yeah,
it's kind of in line with that.
Yeah.
I don't know, but
kind of already been done before.
The black guy with the eyepiece, he looked so crappy. It's like he had a space bottle cap on his eye, and like, oh look, I'm modded now. I mean,
maybe that's all he could afford. Maybe he couldn't afford because the water's so expensive there to do anything better.
The other modders should have helped him out. Okay, let's drop those guys. I want to get back into something more positive. Chris, what was your favorite moment or scene in the series?
Just because I'm such a big Luke Skywalker fan, I really enjoyed Luke Skywalker, and it seems to be people either think he looked great and sounded great, or think he looked too Uncanny Valley and sounded Uncanny Valley. I thought he looked great. I thought he sounded like he should. I was amazed at how. I know it's all AI. I didn't realize that when I was watching it, and I knew it sounded too young to be Mark Hamill, because he can't sound like that anymore. He just doesn't sound like that. But he sounded like Return of the Jedi Luke to me. He really did. And people say he was flat or whatever, but he was talking like a Jedi.
Right. I think that added to his whole thing about not having attachment, is having that monotone voice. I think that totally worked. So I totally agree with you there. For the people that don't know the whole AI aspect of the voice work, can either of you explain that more? It's kind of complex. I'm gonna lean on Chris on this.
It's an AI system where they take as much like footage of a real person talking as they can possibly get, I imagine they took like everything from Return of the Jedi and anything else he did in that era and threw it into a computer through this program, and now it talks. And there's actually a really good clip if you look up Val Kilmer AI on YouTube. He has health problems right now. He can't talk normally, but he used this AI to sound like the Val Kilmer that you know and love. He's like, I can't talk right now because of my throat situation, but this is me talking through AI, and it's pretty interesting. It's worth looking up.
Very.
But yeah, that's how they did it. It's just computers, and the scary kind of thing is like, is this gonna replace voice actors eventually?
Yeah, that de-aging. You're gonna have like 5 actors at a time. They'll be doing everything.
Yeah.
Paul, what about you? What was your favorite moment? Did you have an oh my god moment in the series?
It was probably the moment when I realized that they were making reference to the Rancor part of that Connect game. And no, actually, that was my favorite part. When he went and got the Rancor and he came back.
You could ride a Rancor in that, right?
On it, that was cool. That and also when the Rancor first showed up and it was Danny Trejo.
Yeah.
Like, that was one of those things that I was like, oh my god, this is so cool. They got Trejo's Tacos on Tatooine now.
Paul, you're forgetting about Star Wars Demolition. Star Wars Demolition had a Rancor rider in it. The video game from like 2000.
There was the Connect game that everybody hated because it had like Han Solo dancing, but it had this really fun mode where you were a Rancor and you basically just, your job was to smash towns, and it was like you just went full Godzilla on like places.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, but yeah, when I completely forgotten about the Rancor, and then all of a sudden it showed up, and I was like, "What the hell, my god!"
I liked in that early episode with the Rancor when they explained the emotional bond the trainer has with the Rancor. And I made the Rancor trainer in Return of the Jedi crying all the more sad.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
When his buddy dies.
One other thing I really liked, Ray. One other thing I really liked, just the how they lured up that Mandalorian episode. There's the Night of 1,000 Tears and all that, like all the Mandalorian lore. Mandalorian, all that. Yeah, I was watching that. I was like, I love this. It was so cool.
This comment guy, he actually reminded me of something that I also loved in that same episode, which was the gigantic droid that was like kind of like the droids from the prequels.
Yeah,
those were super cool. I was like, I mean, again, it was one of those things where I was like, oh my god, and then I was like, oh yeah, that makes perfect sense that somebody would build like a gigantic destroyer like that.
Right. So Tokes21 says the Rancor should have eaten Boba Fett for letting him get shot when he got close to those huge scorpion droids. Yeah, but they have the bond. Well, I'm assuming
he knew
they
what he's getting into. The Rancor knew what he's getting into. I was actually, I never realized they were that durable. Like those huge shots to the chest. Like there must be some kind of armor going on, because all Luke does is flatten his head to kill him.
Right.
I guess you gotta get the head.
Well, but the door had like those sort of spike things, and one of them, like, I think went right into his brain. So you can't really back the tank that one out.
No, not so much.
So let's talk about Ahsoka for a second. She popped up in episode 6, and for me, that was my favorite moment of the series because I'm such a big fan of her character.
Yeah,
and Rosario is awesome. Someone posted it on Twitter where they showed from the animated series that Ahsoka has a tendency to like lean her arm on one hip while she's standing, and Rosario did that in the series, and I'm like, oh wow, that's such a cool thing that I never would have noticed unless awesome Twitter nerds brought it up. So
Yeah. I don't think I noticed that, but that I know it going through my head. Yeah, that totally makes sense. That's cool.
It does stand like that. Yeah, when you think about it, yeah, absolutely. So Luke makes Grogu make a choice between the Beskar chainmail and Yoda's lightsaber. What did you make of that whole situation?
Who you asking?
Apparently, it's from straight out of Lone Wolf and Cub. I've never actually seen or read that, but like there's a moment. You guys know what that is? You familiar with?
Yeah.
Lone Wolf. Yeah. And it's apparently a straight homage to that. But yeah, I mean, I knew that Grogu would go for the Mandalorian because they need to do a season 3, and it'd be really tough without him. But I did think that like season 3 would be a little more about Grogu being with Luke and, you know, maybe cutting back and forth between them. You know, it was cool. Part of me is a little disappointed how fast that all went, though.
Totally fair. Paul, what did you make of the choice?
I thought it was funny that the armor looked like Mithril from the Lord of the Rings, which I'm sure somebody pointed out, and they were like, "Yeah, go with it anyway." It's funny because that whole part, I didn't expect any of that to come up. Like, I think I was with like most people that this is just going to be about Boba Fett. And when they brought all that stuff in, I was like, okay, where are they going with it? And there was also a part of me that wondered if it was going to be one of those things where Luke says, choose one or choose the other, and then he ends up with both anyway, you know. Like Luke was like,
"Oh, you're gonna go." I was half expecting him to pull the lightsaber out during the Rancor sequence.
Yeah, I was expecting he was going to go all Yoda from like the, you know, where he's all bouncing around and stuff, which would have been very weird and out of character.
I was hoping for that, but I wasn't expecting it. I didn't like the choice, the whole, because it just seemed unnecessary, especially with Ahsoka there. Like the whole thing about attachment, that was the downfall of Anakin, and Luke's attachment to his father was the reason why he won in Return of the Jedi. And Ahsoka could have explained all this to him. So it seemed like he was forcing Grogu into a decision that he didn't have to make. I didn't think about Lone Wolf and Cub, Chris, but now that you brought it up, that makes sense there. But it just seemed like an unnecessary decision.
I feel like it was maybe too fast. I don't think it was unnecessary. I think it was maybe too fast. It's like when Luke says, you know, I don't know if he wants to be here or whatever he says. Like I wasn't like totally bought into that at that point. I feel like they were kind of shoving that in our face. Like, you know, we have to make sure, you know, that he's not really into it as much as he should be yet. So yeah, again, you know, I would have preferred to have seen that whole stuff stretched out a bit more. But I still like what
I had a totally stupid thought when Luke was saying that he wasn't sure if Grogu wanted to be here. For some reason, I thought of Clerks, and in my head, Grogu was like, "I'm not even supposed to be here today." Makes no sense, but it happened. So Tokes 21 says
Rosario Dawson was in there.
That's right, she was.
There you go.
Good tie-in. Grogu will outlive Luke, so he can get training from Rey later. Yeah, that's true, but we don't know what happens. Maybe he ends up ruling Mandalore. I guess we'll find out in season.
That actually would not surprise me.
I mean, he is a foundling.
Yeah, he is a foundling, and I do think he's going to have at some point his own Mandalorian gear.
That'll look cute.
It's gonna be crazy.
I've seen people put Grogu in different armors, like traditional Mandalorian armor, but there was one from one of the guys in the Dark Order from the Avengers, the one with like the horn kind of armor. They put Grogu's face on that. It actually looked kind of sweet. Now let's go to the dark side again. We talked about the mod gang, but was there anything you didn't like about the series or anything that bothered you?
I mean, it's just kind of the nitpicks that we've kind of gone over. Yeah, I do think it did disappoint me legitimately that Luke is continuing the whole attachment is bad philosophy, because he didn't have that in the expanded universe stuff before the Legends, as they call it now.
Yes.
He got married.
Right, that's right.
I miss you, Mara Jade.
They wrote her in somehow. I don't think it'll happen.
Yeah, I don't know how they could at this point. It wouldn't be the same. I mean, maybe they'll throw her in with the Thrawn stuff that'll happen in the Ahsoka show, but yeah, it's not going to be the same dynamic, because it was all about like her being the anti-Luke at first, basically. Like, she had these powers, but she wanted it to be bad, basically, and then she eventually found her way to the light. Fought with Kyle Katarn in the expansion pack to Jedi Knight.
That's true. That's true. Now, Paul, what are some of the things you didn't like about the series, if any?
Well, I think I would have liked if there had been more episodes. I agree with Chris about the stuff with Luke being a bit quick. And somebody else pointed out that, like, well, hang on a second here. How does Ahsoka know Luke?
Yeah.
And what conversations did they have? Because she knows his dad before his dad had that issue, the skin condition. So there's got to be like a story there, and like, are we ever going to get to see that? Like, how did they meet? What did they talk about? I mean,
did they make out? And did she say that's not how your dad would have done
it? I don't know. I mean, but I also was sort of like wondering what comes next. And I was sort of like thinking, like, when I was like, okay, we're watching the end credits and there's going to be like a tease towards what's going to happen next, and then it was like the Marshal, and I'm like, oh, all right.
Yeah, it's not exactly like MCU level stinger there.
No. Unless, of course, this might still happen, unless they do like a TV show with that guy, which people have been sort of pushing for. And in fact, what they've been saying is they should do Justified with that character in Star Wars. In fact, I was on Justified, and they think that would be like a really cool, since he's going to be okay.
Well, do you think he'll pop up again in Mandalorian season 3, or will there be? Do you think there'll be a Boba Fett season 2?
Can I throw out my little fan theory here? I actually tweeted this out a few days ago.
Let's hear
my
it.
thought. I'm not even gonna. It's a theory suggests that it could actually happen. It could happen, I guess. But season 3 of Mandalorian is going to happen. They go on their adventure to Mandalore, where he goes into the depths of Mandalore to reclaim, to do whatever he has to do to be welcome with the tribe again. Somewhere along the way, he meets up with Boba Fett again, like toward the end. Maybe Bo-Katan as well. Maybe Bo-Katan's even like fighting for the Darksaber against him. Right. And then by the end of season 3, a greater threat presents itself. And then season 4/season 2 of Book of Boba Fett is called The Mandalorians. And it's all of them together, with Grogu now being a Mandalorian himself. Officially.
That's very funny that you thought of that.
Is this on the wall in your room that we can't see, with like string connecting like different?
That's in my head. The strings are in my head.
It's funny that you say that though, Chris, because after I watched not the episode with Luke, but the episode that was more Mandalorian, the first one that was more Mandalorian than Boba Fett.
Right.
But they're clearly going somewhere with this.
Yeah.
And then I thought, what if they're going somewhere bigger with this? like what if they're going yeah, they're building towards something at the end of Boba Fett, but they're actually building towards something even bigger. You know, not like Avengers level bigger, but like something like kind of bigger where they tell like maybe even do a movie with like Grogu and the Mandalorian and Boba Fett and Ahsoka and all this other stuff. And I'm not even suggesting, by the way, a theatrical movie. It could just be a Disney Plus movie, which would, But then again, I mean, every episode looks like a movie anyway. So
yeah, might as well just do a whole show. Yeah, I think what the threat you're talking about is Thrawn, Grand Admiral Thrawn.
Maybe, but I don't know how that ties in with the Mandalorian and Boba Fett.
Well, remember Ahsoka said in her debut.
I know that she's looking for him.
Yeah, Ezra.
She wants to find Ezra, but like, and I guess like there's a
Sabine's going to be on her show. It's confirmed, I think.
I don't know that was that okay. I didn't know that was confirmed. But yeah, like I don't know how that ties in. How that ties into everything, unless of course Thrawn somehow became a Mandalorian and is trying to take over Mandalore. I don't know. I mean, we don't really know what the hell Thrawn is.
Yeah, he just tried to take it over. We have a question from a viewer that I can't answer because I have not watched Bad Batch yet. Will that include Omega if they introduce her in live action?
Yeah,
can either of you take it?
I think we don't know what happens to Omega. Like she, she's a kid in Bad Batch, so she'd be what, like 35 or so.
She'd be
35, 40, something like that.
She'd be younger.
I mean, it could.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I could see Omega being part of that. Sure. I think they might want to finish with her in Bad Batch, like finish whatever they want to do with that series as a whole. So, we don't know. She might die or, something like that. That'd be terrible because she's a kid, but they probably wouldn't do that in a kid's show. But yeah, I think they could. Sure, they could bring back Omega at some point, the same way that they brought in Ahsoka, like the kind of thing where it's an entrance for people who know, who don't know who that character is, and but if you know who it is, then it's like, oh wow, I know so much about this character already.
Right. Well, I guess there's a Bad Batch season,
but I would not predict it at this point. Yeah, season 2 is coming up.
Real quick, I've yet to watch Bad Batch. It's on my binge list. I keep putting it off for no reason. Recommend? Yes, no?
I'm sorry, you cut out there, so I missed your question.
I recommend because I
think
I recommend. He just asked if we recommend it. Yes, it is probably the least favorite of all these Star Wars shows for me personally. It's got some cool stuff in it. I feel like the characters themselves are maybe a little too cartoonish for me at the end of the day. I've seen this comparison to the Ninja Turtles. Like they've each got their own kind of specialty. But yeah, I certainly recommend watching it. There's some good stuff. There's some Cad Bane versus Fennec Shan in it.
Oh, so yeah, that's right.
You know that they know each other already.
Yeah.
So watch it for that, if nothing else. But yeah, it's definitely worth watching for sure.
I'll definitely check it out. But I mean, Rebels to me was one of the best animated series ever. And anything after that, it's just such a tough act to follow that I don't know. But I will give Bad Batch.
You like Rebels more than Clone Wars?
Only because there were so many filler episodes of Clone Wars because it was so long and it had more seasons.
Okay. Yeah.
I think Rebels, especially after the first half of season 1, the storytelling just felt a lot tighter. I mean,
I can see
feel
that.
free to disagree. I think that I love
I mean,
them both.
I like Clone Wars better. I think I just like the characters in Clone Wars better at the end of the day. But yes, I like Rebels as well. I love seeing Thrawn there for sure.
There was in episode 7, there was a Myluron fruit that made me very happy. I'm like, is Commander Myluron here too? And I love that
because I know there's a fruit that they gave to Boba Fett in the show. I think it's the same thing. Yeah.
Yeah, it was a
Oh,
Myluron.
episode 7, this
Yeah.
show, right? I thought you meant The Force Awakens. Okay.
Oh no. Yeah. But that was such a tiny callback for fans of Rebels that love that kind of stuff.
Yeah, those are all over the place. It's cool. I mean, I love watching Screen Crush is my favorite. Like of all the Star Wars Explained is another great one. Just all these great kind of YouTubers who lay all that stuff out.
Right.
You know, some of it's probably informing some of the stuff I'm saying here today, but The Mandalorians was my idea.
There have been a lot of complaints about the Book of Boba Fett, saying basically that they don't like it because it's not as good as The Mandalorian. They don't like it because that some of the aspects of it, like they said, Boba Fett's plan was stupid, and that one I kind of agree, but not to the point where I dislike the series. What do you make of some of the heat the series is getting? Is it just fans being complaining fans, or are there legitimate
part of Star Wars? Part of Star Wars is haters.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I mean,
there are people like me who choose to see the good in everything. I recognize the faults of The Rise of Skywalker, but I like it. There's stuff in it that I really like, and for that reason, I like the movie and I like this show. I've said there's stuff in this show that is not executed well, in my opinion, but I still love it.
right.
Like
going back to the first 3 episodes, like I thought the first 3 episodes were fine, and that's
the second
good enough.
one was phenomenal. That was like one of my favorite Star Wars things. Yeah.
I didn't like it as much as you. Like for me, the series didn't pick up till I liked episode 4, loved 5 and 6, and I enjoyed 7. I mean, not everything is excellent, and I don't expect it to be. That doesn't mean I hate it or think it's bad. I enjoyed the series as a whole. Like you said, Chris, it did have problems, but overall, I was entertained. So I guess Chris is the good Jedi. I'm the gray Jedi, and Paul, that makes you the Sith by default.
Oh, well, my opinion doesn't match that unless I don't know. I mean, my thing is I tend not to, because it has like it is to me like just a really long movie in that regard, and so in terms of like the complaints, some of them were legitimate, some of them were not. But as with a lot of things with Star Wars and other things that I get really into, whether it's Star Trek or The Matrix or Metallica albums, I recognize that there's problems, but they don't necessarily bother me. Or I kind of go, well, okay, yeah, I wouldn't have made that choice, but whatever,
Right.
I mean, it's, to go back to like the Luke stuff, it's like, would it have been better if they had gotten, Mark Hamill to do the voice and somehow treated it so it sounded younger? Maybe. Would it have been better if they gotten Sebastian Stan to do the role instead of CGI Luke? Maybe. Did it bother me all that much? No. And you know what? I to be honest with you, I half expect in 10 years they're going to go, oh, hey, we did a better job with that stuff. So here's the new special edition of the Book of Boba Fett.
With Sebastian Stan transposed in.
No, just better CGI Luke,
Yeah, one of the guys who worked on that actually was there was a YouTube video, got a couple million views after Luke appeared on Mandalorian, they improved it and made it look better. Just some special effects guys, like
Right.
fans, and like
I read that.
apparently they hired one of those guys, for this.
Oh yeah.
That's pretty cool.
You know, one of the reasons why I enjoyed this and most Star Wars things really is because of something you said to me, Paul, a long time ago. Like you said, like for people in our age range, Star Wars is the original trilogies. There's a generation of fans that grew up with the prequels.
Right.
There's another generation that grew up with Clone Wars and Rebels. So I don't think of Star Wars as one thing. It's a lot of different things to a lot of different fans, and I love almost all of it.
Yeah. Well, there was an interview that came out today with Ewan McGregor, and he was talking about how much fun he had filming the Obi-Wan show. And one of the things, the reason he said that was that, you know, when he did those movies, he was like, we got a bit of grief for them, which is sort of an understatement. And he goes, but now there's an entire generation of kids who grew up that for them, that's Star Wars.
Yeah.
Right.
And they really wanted to see, they're the reason that the Obi-Wan show is happening, because they wanted to see what, and he said this experience really good for him, because he's like he knows that there's like an audience out there for it, and he's all excited for it. But yeah, it's totally true. I mean, there's like you said, like you now have like these kids for whom Star Wars started with The Mandalorian, and and you know, Baby Yoda and all that stuff. And like later they'll go back and watch the other stuff, and they'll probably be like, oh, that's dumb and that's dumb and that's dumb, but this is cool. And like, you know, it just goes on from there. And I can't really think of anything else that's like that.
Yeah, my daughter, who's not quite 2 now. Yeah, just to your point, Paul, my daughter who's not quite 2. She knows Grogu. Like she can say Grogu. She identifies Grogu. She sees Yoda. She says Grogu. So whereas Baby Yoda is Grogu to us, old Grogu is Yoda to her.
I will say this: it is very interesting to me that usually in Star Wars, when something cute comes along, you have some people who love it and some people who hate it, and yet for whatever reason, nobody hates Grogu.
Yeah.
Well, on the other hand, did anyone really love the Porgs? Like,
I love the Porgs. Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
They were kind of just there playing.
Like, yeah, there were a lot
of characters, or did you want to eat one like Chewbacca did? Like,
well, I you know, they're kind of gamey from what I've heard, but no, but like those things were like wildly popular. Like they were like, out of all the toys that came out of that era, like they sold really, really well.
Wow.
You know.
But
it's the same thing. It's like, you know, you had like C-3PO, like everybody hated C-3PO after the first movie, and everybody hated the Ewoks, including the baby Ewok after Jedi, and everybody hated Jar Jar, but not everybody really. But with Grogu, it's like, I mean, except for his name, which people are kind of like, but like nobody hates that kid, and it's fascinating to me that like that's like the one thing in Star Wars that everybody's like, yes.
But I wonder
have you
if
seen the comparison between Grogu and shaved Gizmo painted green? It's uncanny. It really is. Grogu really is green Gizmo shaved.
Wow.
That's great. But I wonder if young people like your daughter, Chris, will maybe in 2 or 3 years they'll see Empire Strikes Back and be like, wow, Grogu looks like shit. Like,
yeah, it's like the question though is like, how do I present Star Wars to her? Like, you know, people were like, when there were 6 movies, were like, do you show them 1 through 6 or do you show them 4 through 6, 1 through 3? And now it's like, there's like so much stuff. What do I start with? What order do we go in?
You're asking 2 people that don't have kids.
It's more of a rhetorical question.
To be honest with you, I'd probably start with the cartoons.
Yeah.
You know, because they're shorter, and you know, and kids are notorious for having poor attention spans. So
content.
There's a lot of really good, like the Forces of Destiny shorts are really good for her.
Well, that's what I was thinking. You
Yeah.
know, like all that kind of stuff, and
Yeah.
and there's that whole series of like little shorts with like where it's all about the women, and just skip that one cartoon about the fighter pilots that. Ugh.
Oh, the Resistance. I think that's actually the most kid friendly of all of them.
Yeah, but it's also like the worst.
I never actually watched
that.
That
Maybe
one.
like my
That's the one
least
I did
favorite.
not watch.
Huh.
Yeah.
No, question about the haters again. And I don't like dwelling on it, but I'm just trying to understand it. Would they dislike the Book of Boba Fett as much if the first 2 seasons of The Mandalorian weren't as good as they were? Is that really the issue there, or they're just angry kids on the internet?
I think maybe so, because I think a lot of people had in their heads that it would be like when I heard the Book of Boba Fett, I thought history, right? I thought it would be like maybe a lot more like flashbacks going farther back, like he's in the Sarlacc and ruminating on his life, you know, like the stuff that happened on his way to being where he is today. And I think a lot of people were thinking in that way, and you know, we're thinking just like more kind of badass bounty hunter stuff. And he's not even a bounty hunter in this; he's a crime lord, right? And he's not even really a crime lord; he's like a, you know, he's an administrator.
Doing Obama.
He's an administrator with a shitty plan. Like I'm gonna rule with respect. And I'm like, this is not gonna work at all. And they blew up Jennifer Beals, and the other guys turned on him. Like this was completely expected because your plan sucked.
Yeah.
Now, we have a comment from Togs21 that's taking a step back. Sorry about that. He said he started his 2-year-old with Rebels and Clone Wars. There you go. That's some fine parenting. I totally support that.
I guess I technically started her today, just with a compilation of Grogu in the latest episode on YouTube. Somebody just like took all the Grogu parts and she watched those.
That's awesome.
Wait, did you show her the part when Grogu calms the okay. What did she think of that? Because I thought that was hilarious. That he
she's kind of watched it all, you know, not stoic, but not. Yeah, there was like a interest, but there wasn't much like reaction.
Right. It was just funny because like that thing is so big and scary, and then you have little Grogu, and he just like curls up next to him, and
oh yeah, I prepared her for the scariness. Was like they're gonna be friends. They're friends.
Right.
He's big, but they're friends.
Now that's a TV show I would watch. Grogu and the
Rancor.
And the Grogu and the Rancor.
See, I would be the bad uncle and be like, they're friends. They just got high together. Now they're sleeping. Like high? I didn't mean high. Where's your Boba Fett, Paul? Do you still have him? Is he on your desk?
I'd like to point out that I bought this years ago. So.
I've got a Boba Fett here. He's holding a thermal detonator.
Obviously,
little commando tchotchke. This is this is meant to hold controllers.
Oh wow!
But I've got him holding this thermal detonator.
I still have the Darth Vader mask that somebody from LucasArts sent me like 30 years ago.
Why aren't you wearing it for the podcast? That would have been
on top of a bookcase, and it's impossible to get to right now.
Okay, that's fair.
Yeah, I actually have a helmet as well that I think I took when I worked at LucasArts. I think it was like just hanging around, and someone was like, "You can have that if you want it," and I was like, "Okay, I'll take a Boba Fett helmet."
Yeah, I know we're really late.
I don't want that.
We're late into this podcast, but for the people watching that didn't know, Chris used to work at LucasArts. He went to one of my Halloween parties dressed as Luke Skywalker. He even had
that's where I met my wife.
That was that party, wasn't it?
Where I met Glenda, yeah. Mm-hmm.
She saw you in that costume and married you. Impressive.
Somehow.
Impressive. Most impressive.
Wow.
Obi-Wan is powerful. That's how it really sounds. Now let's talk about what's next. We know that Obi-Wan is coming next. Do you have
Right.
What are your expectations for that? Some of my viewers are kind of tired of Tatooine. I guess they hate sand. Get it? I hate sand.
Gets everywhere.
Yeah, it's rough and it's coarse and it gets. But do you mind going back to
It's not
Tatooine
smooth
one more
like
time?
you, Raymond.
Ah, I wish.
You have to for a while. You're going to have to for a while. There's no way
Yeah.
around it.
Yeah.
Yeah. From what I understand, he will get off of Tatooine. I'm a little scared of what they're doing with Vader, because Vader's going to be in it, and you know, if they meet, which it sounds like they probably will, like, then their meeting in episode 4, I feel like, has a little less weight than
Yeah.
it
Absolutely.
does currently when there's the gap between 3 and 4.
Well,
I mean, it's still a long time, I guess.
Yeah, but here's the thing: if they're casting, if they got the guy Hayden Christensen to come do it, then he may not be Vader in the show yet.
Yeah, it could be flashbacks, I guess.
Because
Yeah.
why would you? Because if you were just going to have Darth Vader in the show, there's no point in getting Hayden Christensen to do it.
I think I've heard it explicitly stated he will be Darth Vader. So maybe that means
maybe because he's
episode
there,
3. There is the portion where he is Darth Vader for a while and looking like
Right.
Anakin.
Yeah, for like 2 seconds. But like what I'm sort of saying is like they wouldn't just hire him to come back and be Darth Vader. That, like, it seems to me that they're probably going to flash back to things that happened before. And he may be the guy in the Darth Vader suit when Darth Vader is on screen, but that's largely just because he's there.
Okay.
Interesting.
But not fight or something. I don't know. I mean, who knows?
I mean, Obi-Wan at this point didn't he watch over Luke for like 20 years?
Yeah, and
or
there's
so?
canon comics. There are comics that happen in canon that are like flashbacks to that, of like Luke at about 11, 12 years old doing Beggar's Canyon and Obi-Wan watching him, and that kind of thing. Really good comics, actually.
I never.
What I wonder is, are they going to redo that episode of, I guess it was Rebels, where which one? Oh God, the guy showed up from the first movie whose name I'm drawing a blank on. The red face.
In Rebels, from the first movie.
From
I don't know.
From the first movie, the guy, he gets the dual lightsaber, he gets killed.
Maul.
Solo.
Maul.
When you say first movie, do you mean
Maul,
episode 4?
No.
Episode 1.
Yeah.
No. What I wonder is, are they gonna redo that episode of Rebels where he faces off against Darth Maul?
Right.
Or does it not?
I don't think so. I feel like this is going to be earlier than that, because that actually happens fairly close to episode 4.
Right.
That actual event. I think this is going to be more like, 5 to 10 years after.
Oh,
I don't know. I don't know. For some reason, I feel like I've heard that. I could be wrong, but I feel like it's going to be earlier in the timeline than that.
That's my expectation too, but I have no good reason backing that up.
Well, what would back that up then is that Joel Edgerton, who played Uncle Owen in the prequels, is coming back.
Oh, I didn't know that. Okay.
Yeah. And I want to say that the woman who played Aunt Beru is also coming back, but I don't know her name.
Yeah, and they are both 23 years older now.
Right, but he doesn't look as old as Uncle Owen did in A New Hope. So,
he looked like crap in A New Hope. Clearly, he had.
Ewan McGregor doesn't look like Ewan Guinness or Alec Guinness.
Right.
Yeah.
Ewan McGinnis.
Just throw them all together. Ewan
McGinnis. It's Daddy Brain at 10:30.
I gotcha. But you're excited for Obi-Wan in general? Yes.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, it's the most of everything so far that I haven't looked forward to one more than this one for sure.
Really? Okay. I mean, I'm
Yeah.
looking forward
Yeah.
as
me,
a
it's
Rebels
tie
fan.
between this and Ahsoka.
So we won't.
Yeah, I'm more excited for Ahsoka because I kind of I love all those characters from Rebels. I want to see live action Sabine. I actually want to. I'm a fan of the actress that's playing her. I saw her in. She was in that movie where Harry Potter has like guns like tied to his hands. Guns Akimbo. Really
Oh,
weird
right.
movie. Yeah,
I never saw
but
that.
she was the girl in that.
Okay.
And she was fun in that. Rosario's awesome.
Yeah.
Have they cast Ezra? Is he going to be in it? I haven't heard anything.
I don't think I've heard about Ezra.
I don't think they've said anything.
I think it makes sense if he's going to show up. It's probably going to be in that show.
Right. I mean, how old would he be at this point?
Well,
Like,
yeah.
would he be
Remember,
like-
Ezra and Thrawn at the end of Rebels kind of go wherever they go together. So
Right.
if she's after Thrawn, it makes sense that Ezra is going to be part of that journey for sure.
All right.
Well,
But I mean,
there is a theory though that because of the way the Ahsoka logo looks, it might tie into that thing in Rebels that they did where there was that weird dimension where you could kind of go in different spaces, and that's how like Ahsoka got saved from Darth Vader earlier.
Yeah, the world between worlds. Is that what it's?
Yeah, something like that. But like, it apparently the Ahsoka logo kind of reminded people of the iconography of that stuff. So,
Interesting.
I mean, who knows?
I love that Star Wars fans catch all these things. It's awesome. So, parting words. We're going to wrap this up soon in a couple of minutes. Got to let Chris. Oh, for those of you that don't know, Chris is also my son-in-law. Not really,
that makes
but
no
also
sense to
really.
anybody. It barely makes sense to me.
But it does on some level, so we're leaving that in. That's canon.
Okay.
I went to college with the woman that Chris married, and I miss them both dearly, and can't wait to meet my granddaughter.
He married us.
That's right,
Reverend Ray.
Yes, they send me a renewal every year on the dot.
Oh,
so
yeah?
I'm still ordained.
Oh, that's awesome.
Yeah. But
What is the church called that you're a reverend of again?
I forgot. I'm like the
That's how much you care about it.
Church of the Internet. I care that I have it. I have that power.
Yes.
That's the important thing. It's in my email. I'll find it. So parting words on the Book of Boba Fett. Let's sum it up. Tell people why they should watch.
Sloppy but awesome. That's just I guess it's my opening words as well. But yeah, I think it could have been executed a lot more cleanly. But I still ate it up and love it. And there's, I can't wait for whatever's next.
By the way, I'm stealing sloppy but awesome for my Tinder profile. I don't actually have one, but now I might.
Well, now you got a reason to.
Yeah, now you got a reason.
Paul, how about let's wrap it up on your part of the thought.
That at some point we will look back on the Boba Fett as being much more consequential than we thought it was at the time. Not just in this, like now it's like, oh, okay, so now we know how Boba Fett survived. Now we know how The Mandalorian season 3 got set up. But I feel like maybe there's something more going on, even more so than I did before, and that this will become more important than we may have realized.
Yeah, that's a good call. I mean, Favreau and Filoni they are smart and creative people that make awesome stuff that all ties in together. So
yeah,
I'm excited to hear that. Well, I want to thank you both for talking about the Book of Boba Fett with me. If you want to hear more from Paul, and you should, because he is awesome, follow him on Twitter. He is at paulsemel.com. If you want to follow Chris, he is at cbake76. You should follow him too. He is awesome. And join me next week on. Oh yeah, Paul, are you watching Peacemaker?
I am then, yes.
Join me next week when Paul will be back to talk about Peacemaker with some other guy that we'll find. But be sure to follow me on Instagram, Facebook, YouTube, and all that good stuff. And thank you so much for joining me live. And thank you for watching the replay. I'm Raymond, joined by Paul and Chris, and you've been watching RPadTV 3000.